Most people spend too much time thinking and not enough doing. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Teddy. I'm a teacher turned entrepreneur. And on this channel and in my videos, I give you actionable items that can help you design a life of purpose. I've been a teacher for 10 years now, teaching at schools all over the world, and I've learned a lot on this journey. I was thinking about this idea of thoughts and actions and comparing it to my work as a teacher. And I realized there are a lot of parallels between my work as a teacher and real life. So over time, in these last 10 years, I've realized that my lessons have changed a lot. What's really changed the most is that I've tried to reduce the amount of time that I'm actually talking or speaking and increase the amount of time that my students are actually working or doing something. Now, there's a specific reason for this, and that's learning by doing. That is an important principle for life in general and inside my classroom. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to succeed at anything in life by reducing the gap between the intention and your action. All right, getting into it. Let's talk about why people get stuck in their thoughts to begin with. There are a few reasons why. First, there's a fear of failure or responsibility. A lot of people get stuck in their thoughts because they're worried about what the outcome might look like. The issue here is that rather than focusing on what it takes to just get started or what the journey might be like, they're already focusing on the end goal. But the end goal is never clear. An idea is never fully formed. You have to focus on just getting started. It's justified and normal to feel this way because there's a fear of being embarrassed, or there's a fear that you may be wasting your effort, or things just don't pan out the way you hope they will. But you have to realize that that's hindering you from getting started in the first place. And along those same lines, maybe you can envision what the outcome might look like, or it's a little bit clearer, but there's a fear of what that success or the responsibility that comes with that success will look like, and if you can handle it. Totally justified, but what we're looking at here is totally not in the right place. What we need to be focusing on is, how can I reduce this gap from my intentions of doing something and actually starting them? A second reason why we get stuck in our thoughts is because we're waiting around for the right conditions. We're waiting for a break in our job. We're waiting for resources. We're waiting for a time where we feel good, or where we don't feel as stressed with everything that's going on around us. But the truth is, there's never a perfect time. The only time that you should be focusing on is right now, or as soon as possible. The conditions will never be perfect, and they may not necessarily be ideal, but the second you get started, the quicker you can get momentum going for yourself. A third reason why we get caught up in our thoughts instead of actually acting is because we get stuck in this comfort zone of just planning. Think about it this way: planning feels a little bit easier than doing. And so we get stuck in this phase where we feel like we're doing something, we feel like we're moving towards the goal, or we're getting closer to these thoughts and visions that we're having. But really what we're doing is we're just staying in the same phase because it feels good and it's safe, and we don't have to take that leap into unknown waters. Don't forget this: planning is giving you an illusion of progress, but that's not actually what's happening. I'll give you a personal example. This YouTube channel, I had been wanting to make this channel and create videos for the longest time. I'd say for at least a year. And I always got stuck in the thinking phase because I didn't know what editing would look like for these videos. I didn't know how I was going to create an entire year of content. I didn't know how I was going to attract subscribers. I didn't know so many different things. And so I took a course, I talked about it with friends, I did all of these things that felt like planning and made me feel like I was getting closer to starting. But at the end of the day, each day that passed, I was just delaying the process, and I just wasn't getting started. I wasn't acting. Eventually, I realized this. Fortunately, not too much time passed. And one day I just woke up and I just knew I just needed to get started. I would get started even though I didn't feel ready. And then I would figure out the rest later. Now that we know a few reasons why it's easy to get stuck in our thoughts rather than acting, let's talk about how we reduce this gap between a thought or an intention and actually acting. Think of it as a pipeline. We want to reduce this gap as much as possible so that the turnaround is super quick. As soon as you have an idea, you act. First way we do this is we build integrity with ourselves. It's all about the promises that you make to yourself. It's all about the words that you stay true to for yourself. If you say you're going to do something, honor that word and do it. If you say you're going to do something and then you repeatedly don't do that, you're not staying true to yourself. You're not building integrity with yourself. Rather, you're building this atmosphere of doubt. You're building this atmosphere of a lack of confidence, which is the exact opposite of what you need to be able to reduce this gap, to be able to take action on things. Trust in yourself, have confidence in yourself, and just get started. Another important way to shrink this gap between intention and action is to start before you're ready. This is a super important one because You'll feel like you're not ready a lot of the times when you're in this thinking phase. But as soon as you catch yourself and understand that you're not ready, that's the time to act. I briefly mentioned this in my personal example of starting this YouTube channel. I knew after all of this thinking and planning that I did that I wasn't ready, but that I just needed to get started. Think about it this way. It's not the thinking that brings clarity to you. It's the action that you're taking that brings you clarity. Learning by doing. As I mentioned, this is the importance of reducing the amount of time that I'm speaking inside of my classroom and increasing the amount of time that my kids are actually doing things. It's the process of doing that brings the clarity. It's the process of doing that allows my kids to learn. And so, relating it back to this example of my YouTube channel, I could have spent all of this time thinking more and more about how to plan and how to edit, how to write scripts, and how to do all of these things that are required for these videos. But what has really helped me to grow the most and what I've learned the most from is just by doing over and over and over again. And that includes failure, which is okay. I have to learn from these experiences to be able to be better. This is great. Once you become more comfortable with taking these risks and failing and doing things without necessarily being ready, you will learn that you can adjust as you go. There's nothing wrong with that. Another super useful way to reduce this gap between a thought and an action is to turn things into micro actions. So break this big thing that you're envisioning into smaller steps and just focus on those steps, not the entire thing. So for example, one of my buddies just completed a half marathon. She told me about all of the training that went into it. She wasn't thinking about the fact that she had to run 21 kilometers every single day. She was thinking about, okay, what are the small steps that I need to take now to be able to achieve that goal months down the line. Some weeks it was running 2 kilometers, increasing it to 4 kilometers. Other weeks it was focusing on her conditioning and running a little bit faster to help her with her pacing. And then eventually she got to the point where she was getting into a rhythm. She was already enforcing a habit of running. She was feeling better. And then as she got closer to her goal, she could actually focus on completing that task. Unfortunately for her, she was able to do so, and I was super proud of her. And lastly, another way that you can reduce the gap between intention and action is to trust the process, not the outcome. It's all about the journey, not the destination. In other words, you have to remember that progress compounds over time. It's these little tiny actions that matter. These 1% changes and shifts and actions add up over time, and that's where real growth happens. One of the big issues that people experience when they have a hard time getting started or staying consistent is because they're not seeing progress quick enough. People want to achieve all of these great things overnight, but that's not a reality for anything. It requires so much time, effort, and patience, and most importantly, consistency. I have said this, what feels like in every single one of my videos related to productivity or success on my channel. Consistency matters. It matters more than being perfect. It matters more than literally anything else. You will not succeed. You will not achieve what you want unless you were consistent at it. So remember it this way. Focus on showing up rather than being perfect, and everything else will fall into place. Thus far, we've talked about how we get stuck in our heads and how we spend too much time thinking instead of doing. We've also talked about ways to reduce the gap between those thoughts and then actually taking action. And now let's talk about some quick benefits of actually taking action. So one way is that you build integrity, as I briefly mentioned before. If you consistently show up, if you have this internal dialogue that you're going to do something you say you will, and then you actually show up and you do it, you're convincing yourself. Your brain is going to start to believe that you are this person, that you are going to do these things because that's just the type of person you are. You're building this integrity. It's a major benefit and can become a tool that you can use in the future. The snowball effect is another reason. Building momentum. The second you take action and then you follow that up with another action and then you follow that up with another action, you start to feel good. Your brain starts to recognize this and you can keep that momentum going. It's way more stronger than if you were to just sit there in the thinking phase, in the planning phase. There's no momentum there. You're kind of just bouncing around from thought to thought. You're stuck. You're not actually doing anything. Getting started also just doesn't really leave room for any doubt to creep in. You're so focused on actually getting started and learning from the process and paying attention that anything might arise throughout the experience that there's just no time or space for the doubting. And that proves to be beneficial in the long run. And then lastly, another important point to consider, even getting started and failing during the experience teaches you more than overthinking ever could. You could sit there for as long as you want, trying to iron out all the details, trying to foresee or plan for anything that might arise. But if you just get into it and then you experience those failures, you're going to learn so much faster from that than the other way around. So to conclude, I want you to envision your inner child. Think about what it was like when you were inside the classroom still, when you were in elementary school, for example. What was that experience like for you as a learner? Even if it wasn't the most positive one, or even if you didn't have the best teachers, you still learned so much, right? We're all incredibly capable as human beings to learn lots of different things, whether it's behaviors or languages or social codes or whatever. We are highly capable of acting and learning by doing. It's one of the joys that I have as a teacher, seeing my kids learning by doing, learning through experience, and having those light bulb aha moments inside of the classroom. Think back to those moments where you didn't really have time to think or worry about what the outcome might be. There really isn't a gap like that inside of the classroom because a teacher teaches you something and then you just get started on it. You're not necessarily worried about failing. You're just getting started and you're trying. The classroom is a safe space to be able to make those mistakes and to grow and evolve as a person. Somehow, along the course of life, we kind of lose sight of that and we get caught up in daily life, but that's okay. Somehow the stars have aligned and this video has found its way into your screen, and let it be a sign for you that whatever project or idea that you've been sitting on, that you've been spending too much time thinking about, this is your sign to just get started. Everything else will fall into place and you will learn more by doing than just be sitting there and thinking. If you found this interesting, please feel free to send this to a friend. Consider subscribing. Conveniently, I've made quite a bit of videos about habits. Habits are directly linked to success, to changing your life, to evolving as a person. And that's something that I'm very passionate in talking about. So check out one of these videos that I'm linking here about habits. Feel free to check out the habits section of my channel. And please stay tuned for next week's video. Thanks.